Hello and welcome to Ice Dice. My name's Evan and this is Mike.
Hello.
Today we're going to be doing a Quick Takes edition. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the Board Game Geeks ranked 91 through 100. And we're just going to give our quick impressions about what these games are like, good or bad. It gives us a chance to talk about some games we might not normally talk about. So let's just get started. At number 100 is Mice and Mystics. Mice and Mystics is a game from Plaid Hat Games, to 1 to 4 players. I don't know how you could play with 1, but I guess you could. It's a fantasy adventure game. It's basically a dungeon crawl. But the idea of this game is that you're people that have been turned into mice, and you have it's almost a story-based game because they do have stories that you read in between, setting up your scenario, and then it's things like you have to go in and get this thing or escape that other thing. It comes with a bunch of unpainted miniatures, but you know, I know painted is better, but they're decent miniatures. What do you think about this game?
Well, I was convinced when I first saw this game it was based on a popular children's book. And somebody said, no, it's fully comes original, which I find highly impressive because it looks like it's a whole world that they put together. And the components are so great in this game, and it's a collaborative. So, and it plays especially well when I've seen it being played. I've played it a couple of times myself, but I've seen it being played with children, and children really go for this thing. It's great in terms of that.
You know, I own this game, and I've never played it. I picked it up at a Dutch auction, which a Dutch auction is where people set a price and then every hour that it drops lower and lower. I waited just for this like 1 or 2 drops and I bought it for precisely the reason you say, is that I think it'd be good with kids. I mean, it's got combat and stuff like that, but I don't think there's no grotesque artwork, and it seems like it'd be a pretty good game for that.
Giant spider. Giant.
And there's a centipede too.
Oh, snap! That's a scary looking spider. Yeah. They don't paint it. That's why they didn't paint it. It'd be even more scary.
Oh, people paint these all the time. But yeah, this is a highly regarded game. You know, that is one thing is you may, if you're not familiar with Board Game Geek, you may think, oh, it's ranked 100. That's not very good. There's tens of thousands of games on there, so if you're ranked in the top 100, that is really good. And I rated this as a haven't played, would like to. Obviously, since I've already bought it, I would like to try it.
I put it as a like it.
Like it? Yeah. No,
yeah, but it's great collaboration with kids. It depends on who I play with.
So that was number 100, Mice and Mystics. Number 99 is Love Letter. Love Letter is an AEG game, and it's short. It's just like 15 to 25 minutes, and it's also cheap. It's $7 to $10. But this is a game that comes with 16 cards, and that's it. And the game is that you deal out, everybody gets 1 card, and then on your turn, you draw a card, and you play a card. That's it. And what you're trying to do is at the end, after you've gone through the deck, is be the player remaining in the hand with the highest ranked player. And you can get eliminated. There's things that can knock you out. But I played this a few times, and I ranked it, it's okay. I mean, it's not nothing I get too excited about, but it did launch the whole micro game genre.
That is why I rate it as a love it. It is one of those rare lightning in a bottle games. It's launched an entire genre of game, people.
It did.
Yeah, how often does that happen in the board game industry? Not often. It's just what lightning in a bottle in game. It's under 20 cards, and it's 15 or 20 minutes of pure fun. It's kind of a little bit of outfoxing, and for reasons I cannot explain, I have a much more fun time when I play this game when I play with the fair sex than I do with playing. I played it with guys and it's dry as toast. I play with women and it's a lot more fun because I don't know what that is. I'm not saying, by no means am I suggesting anything toward or bad. This is the part where I need to stop talking.
I wasn't thinking you were saying something untoward or bad until you said that. Now I'm like, what is he thinking? But we'll forget. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'll play this game, but it's not one I suggest very often. But I do own it just in case, because there are certain circumstances where it's like you might as well just bring it along.
What is your opinion on the people that are coming out with variations on the love letter? Batman love letter, Star Wars love letter, Hobbit love letter.
I don't know. I do have But boy, I don't remember what company it was, but when I was at Gen Con, there's other ones like, I don't even know what they're called, Fortress City, but they do other things. You know, it's the same sort of thing, but the powers are different.
Steve Jackson also did a Munchkin thing with the love letter too. So.
I think that's actually, my opinion on that is I think it's a good thing. Just because, yeah, I mean, it's you could add a lot of twists to it. It's just a structure.
Yeah,
you know, it's just a structure, and the powers are what make the game. And there's a lot of variations you could do on those powers that would be an enjoyable game. Okay, well that's number 99, Love Letter. Number 98 is Jaipur.
Is that how you say that?
That's how I say it.
I don't know. I own this game. I've played it many times. I never pronounced it correctly.
It's a GameWorks game. It's only for 2 players, and 25-30 minutes, that's about. But you're Indian traders trying to impress the Maharaja. It's basically a set collection card game. Because what they have these cards of the various goods in there. I guess I didn't put in the picture of the camels, but there's also camels. And the way it works is that you either take cards or you spend cards, or maybe you can do both. But when you take more than one card, you have to refill. So if you took 3 cards, you would have to take 3 cards from your hand and put them back. So there's that hand management aspect of it. And there's the camels, which are easy to get, but they're good for that. You're taking 3 cards, well, I'm just going to stick a bunch of camels. However, they do have a reward for if you have the most camels at the end. But when you play the card, these tokens you see here, when you play the cards, when you play a set of, let's say, the 3 green ones, you get 3 green tokens. There's also, down here at the bottom, there's some bonus tokens, so you get a bonus. And so you want to try to submit as many of them as you can. So you go until, I think it's that there's only 2 stacks left, and then you count up your points, and you play 3 rounds and see who wins. But as a 2-player game, I really like it.
Yeah, it's a great 2-player game. I wasn't a big fan of this when it first came out in Essen in 2009. But my wife was playing it, and she really liked it, and she said, oh, we better get it. And I said, oh, okay, we'll get it. And the hand management, it won me over, plus it's really a pretty game. So when you're playing it, it's one of those games that attracts other people seeing you playing it. They, oh, that looks like a good game. And it is a good game, but the hand management is really what sells it. It's great.
It is, and the way the scoring works. But you're right, it looks good. And as a 2-player game, this is maybe for non-gamers. If I just had one person to play with, this would be high on my list to try.
Yeah, I'd play this. I'd play Lost Cities, and then the same way.
I'm not a big Lost Cities.
I like Lost Cities.
So I ranked it a like it. You ranked it? Love it. Okay.
Oh, because my wife likes it more than I do. I have to love it.
Does she beat you at it?
Dear Lord, yes.
Yeah.
She's very good at hand management.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, that's number 98. Number 97 is Blood Bowl, the Living Rulebook. This is from Games Workshop, and it is just what it says. It's just a rule book. But you'll notice the price down there is out of print. I think that I don't even know if they ever came out with a printed edition of this, but it's really just the rules for a game. And the game is fantasy football, but not fantasy football as you might know it, where you draft real NFL players and what they score during the week you get, but it's orcs fighting trolls, or playing against trolls, playing against elves, and they can hurt each other and things like that. I think the way they made their money on this game is they sold these packs of miniatures. So you'd buy these teams and you would do it. But it's not a game that's out there. I know there's a lot of fans of it. And I believe if you looked online, you probably could find the rules. I think I saw somewhere where they said, here's the latest. They're probably unofficial, which I'm surprised that they can get away with that, because Games Workshop is a copyright maximalist.
Yeah.
You know what they did is that some person self-published a novel on Amazon that called Space Marines, and they sued him. Yeah, they're like, we own the trademark to Space Marines.
Really?
Yeah.
Game Workshop.
They
have enough power in the world.
Yeah, it's just some people, they just go overboard with that kind of thing. You know, which, like George Lucas is not that way. There's so much Star Wars fan fiction, and they're just like, good. You know, fine. That's fine. You're just helping us. I wish Games Workshop was more like that. But they have not shut down, to their credit, those rules are available, and there's leagues. People play leagues of this
So
thing.
you are telling me right now, if you were to open your door and yell, "Orcs playing football," somebody from Games Workshop would show up.
No, they don't have that trademark. But if you said Space Marines, they'd be at your doorstep in a heartbeat. Well, you know, I wavered on this one on whether I haven't played it, but whether I was like to or not interested or don't know enough. And I actually ended up putting I'd like to play it. I have played Blood Bowl Team Manager, which is a card game based on a similar concept. But this is a much more involved game, you know, plays on a grid and you do things. So, I mean, the concept of it interests me, but it's not something I'm seeking out.
No, I'm with you in the same bowl. I mean, the bowl, not bowl. By the way, the nice thing bowl, look at this font they did. They were real subtle in that.
So, I haven't played Like 2. You do?
Yeah, I haven't played Like 2. I've also played Blood Bowl Team Manager, which is that's a fine game.
Okay, that was number 97. Blood Bowl Living Rule Book. Although it is odd that a rule book is just in the top 100 of BGG. Especially since it's kind of old, 2014, but it must have something going for it.
Yeah.
Okay, number 95 is, number 96. Oh, I'm sorry, number 96. Claustrophobia. Claustrophobia, that was a big box game. It came out in 2009 from Asmodee. It's a fantasy dungeon game, and I hesitate to call it a dungeon crawl.
It isn't a dungeon crawl?
Well, because it's only 2 players. It's 2 players. One side plays the hero, and one side plays the bad guy. But it is scenario-based. I mean, there are certain aspects of it that are dungeon crawl-esque. But there's a couple of good things about this game. One of which is it comes with pre-painted miniatures. If you look at those are pretty nice.
Those are pretty nice.
But there are other couple. I played this. I think I played it once. That there's a couple of interesting concepts going on here. One is that you have. I don't think I have a picture of this. No, I don't. The heroes have a board that has their statistics like movement, attack, and defense. And next to that is it goes from 1 to 6 on the dice. When they start their turn, they roll the dice, and then they assign those dice to their various heroes. So what they're doing is they're saying, oh, this is a number 4, that's that guy's best stats, I'm putting on this guy, and then you kind of do that. So that's interesting in and of itself. But the way damage works in this game is they don't have hit points. When they take damage, they put a peg in and then block that number. Now you can no longer use the number 4 on this guy. And now you can no longer use 5 and 6 on. So that's interesting. I find that interesting. And the monster side has something similar in that they've got, this board here that has various powers that they have that are based on the dice they roll. And it might say something like, you need 1 die of value 3 or more, or it might just have a raw number like 9. You have to put value 9 worth of dice on this to get this power. So they have this sheet of powers that, based on their dice roll, determine the powers they get for that turn. Have you ever played this game?
No, I've not. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the dungeon crawl. But you know, if it's a really good dungeon crawl, but the downside to me seems like, you know, a 2-player dungeon crawl with all this. Well, even if the miniatures are great, I don't know.
Well, I consider a true dungeon crawl where heroes go into a dungeon and explore. They keep exploring and bad things come up. That's not really so much what this game is. There is that element. There is exploring. You kind of go and you flip tiles and it builds your thing. But it's not like you're going in... Well, I guess maybe I shouldn't say that because they do have scenarios. But I just see it more as a 2-player tactical combat game. That's what I see it as. I see it as a skirmish game where you got one side coming in and one side, and yes, the battlefield evolves as you're playing. But yeah, I put this as a well, what did I put it as? Oh, I put it as okay. It's just okay.
What's your favorite dungeon crawl game?
Probably Descent 2 2nd edition, or Imperial Assault,
yeah,
which is really a dungeon crawl in the thing. So if you consider Imperial Assault, I would consider that.
All right.
But I still play Dungeons and Dragons with my brother plays Dungeons and Dragons with the same person he played in junior high with. He's been playing with the same people.
I think you need to play Dungeons and Dragons with people you know since junior high, because you don't want to start off as an adult. Hey, let's start off a campaign.
Yeah, I don't know. I can see where people are interested, but they're his friends and not mine. But they invited me a few years ago, and we only play like 3 or 4 times a year, and it is good. I'll tell you this is that here's my thoughts on a game like Descent versus Dungeons and Dragons. What I like about Descent is that you can look at that monster stat card and you know everything it does. With Dungeons and Dragons, it's like there may be things going on that the Dungeon Master is keeping secret from you. I mean, you may know, oh, these monsters usually do this, but for all you know, they have special powers. You know, get to see, and I do find this frustrating with Dungeons and Dragons, is that, oh, you're attacking this guy. I roll a 16. Does that hit? No. Okay. You don't know what you're supposed to get. Eventually you figure it out after roll, you're like, oh, I must need like a 12, whatever it is. It's like, well, just tell me what I need to hit for crying outside loud. But what Dungeons and Dragons has that games like Descent and Imperial Assault is there's a lot more of the role playing. At least if you have a good dungeon master, there's a lot more story. You get they'll set up scenarios and you interact with people, you have conversations, and I actually am not a person that participates in that part of it so much. We have a very boisterous personality that is in there that usually takes the lead on that kind of thing, and I'll just chime in. But that's something Dungeons and Dragons have that you don't really get in Descent or Imperial Assault. Okay, next is Imperial Settlers, number 95. Imperial Settlers is from Portal Games. That's a Polish company, and I believe this is a Polish designer. It's 1 to 4 players. This is based off of the Area 51 game, but it's a civilization building game, but it's also sort of an engine building card game that you have to you put down buildings type things, and you get resources to spend on more buildings or to get points and things like that. They also do have it so that the base game comes with 4 different civilizations, each of which has a special power, and they have their own special deck. So every civilization gets its own special deck, plus there's a shared deck where you can do things. Have you played this game?
I have not played this game. I admit I saw the good reviews on this game, and I've seen it being played, and it looks like a fine game. But this is just one of those that slipped through the cracks based on I could not get past the title. Imperial Settlers. It sounds like the most boring title. It's like some board gamer people, professional board game designer came up, so we got this great game and it plays like this and plays like this. What's the name of it? Oh, we can't come up with a name. And they're like, pick a couple of names that sound like it should be in a board. It's like marketing people picked the name of the game instead of the people that designed the game. Well, Imperial Settlers.
The complaint I always hear is people hear settlers and they think it's related to settlers.
Of course, there are Imperial and there's a lot of Imperial. Hello, how many games have Imperial in it? More than one?
No, settlers.
No, and Imperial.
Oh, Imperial, yeah. Okay.
Boring. Name. Boring title. Boring title. Sorry, but it's a boring title.
So one of the knocks I hear about this game, well, let me say this about the positive sides, is that I like the concept. I'd like to try it, but the knock I hear is that it's not really all that balanced. So that there are certain buildings that certain factions have in their decks that if they get those going, they can really mess with you. I seem to recall that one of them was, one of these has one that lets you just use somebody else's stuff, which normally when you do that you have to compensate them, but it lets you use it for free and it prevents them from using it. And it's like if you're the guy who's getting his best building taken away from every turn, that's no fun. But that's hearsay. I've not played it. I don't know if that's actually true. I've ranked it as haven't played, like to try.
No interest. Plus the cover of the game, boring.
What's the matter with the cover?
Oh, look at that. Teddy Roosevelt with his happy dog.
I wouldn't say it's boring.
Honk shoe.
So much as
honk shoe.
Goofy. It's goofy. And which is kind of, that is one thing, is it's got this goofy cover, but for what I hear, it's actually fairly confrontational. So I could see where, because you can mess with other people. So it seems like, oh, it's going to be a fun, lighthearted thing. It's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be mean to you. Yeah, so I don't know if that fits. But yeah, I'd like to try it, but I'm not going out of my way. Number 94 is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Now, this is a game that was released back in 1981. There's a new edition from Yastari, and it plays 1 to 8 people. The theme is obviously Victorian mysteries with Sherlock Holmes, but this is a paragraph-based story game. So you read out of this book, and it says, and you're supposed to pick up clues about things that help you solve these mysteries. Do you know anything about this game?
No, I know about paragraph story games, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the detection game. If I were to be a fan of the detection game, the one I've seen that being played that I would like to try is Tragedy Looper, because it's just so out there and fun. But it is a detection game. But yeah, this is a straight classic detective game that classic detective people like to play, so it's just not my thing, so more power to them, man.
Well, some of the things I've heard about this game, and they may be referring to the earlier edition, is that you can't, it's not true deduction in that you can't like eliminate the possibilities, and the way you play it is that you're competing against Sherlock Holmes. So I'm not sure exactly how it works, but if I had to guess, I would think it would be something like, oh, you get this information, you can do some stuff, and periodically Holmes will show up and say, oh, I figured out this part, and then you kind of keep trying to beat him to the end. But I put this game as I'm not interested. And the reason I'm not interested in is when I look at this game and what I read about it, I'm like, my impression is, this isn't a game. This is a cooperative puzzle. You know, it's a puzzle that you guys all work together on. And maybe I'd like it by myself, but it's like, I'm not bringing it to the table to have us just put together a jigsaw puzzle together. Well, I guess some people enjoy that. But
aha, I've figured it out! The dog did not bark when he saw Mr. Kensington. That's a classic Sherlock Holmes line. The dog didn't bark when he saw the guy and he knew that it was the dog. That's the only... I saw one movie, that Sherlock Holmes movie, and the dog didn't bark, and so he figured it out that the dog knew the guy, so that guy had to be familiar with the place. He broke in and he stole the stuff.
I've read some Sherlock Holmes, and I watched the new BBC series. You watched that new BBC series?
No, I wish I could. I wish I could. It's very geek-tastic, but I'm not a mystery guy.
It's good, but I will say one thing about it is that they talk about Sherlock Holmes being using deduction to turn things. Mm-hmm. He actually doesn't use deductive reasoning, he uses inductive reasoning, which the difference is deductive means, well, I know A and I know B, so it has to be C. Inductive reasoning is, oh, well, I see this and I see this. The most likely possibility is this. And he does a lot more of that than he does actually figuring out all these things. Although the example you just gave, oh, well, the dog didn't bark, well, that would be...
Well, or the modern take where Robert Downey Jr. decides, Sherlock Holmes or Iron Man, I can be both, let's do it. I'm going to be Iron Man and Sherlock Holmes. It works.
Well, one thing about this game is that I have seen people complain that you can't figure it out from what the clues. Sherlock Holmes comes up with...
you literally can't figure it out?
Sherlock Holmes figures out things that you can't get that from this, and I don't know if that's true. But if it is, it's like, I don't want to play that game. So yeah, I put it as haven't played, not interested.
No, I'm not a deduction.
Oh, I like deduction games, but this doesn't sound like that great of a deduction game. You know why it's ranked? I believe it's ranked so highly is because it's been out of print for a long time, and now they just came out with a nice new edition. So it was ranked fairly high, and now it's kind of working its way up the charts. Okay, so number 93 is Yinch. Yinch is a Rio Grande game. It's a pure abstract strategy game. There's no theme at all whatsoever to it. But what it is that you have this board, and you start out, I don't remember what the rules are for how you get it set up. I think each person places one thing. But one side is black and one side is white. On your turn, you move your ring, and then you move it along a line, and then everyone you pass over changes to your color. So then you try to get it 5 in a row, and when you do that, you remove your ring. So what happens is that so when someone starts to do well, then they have fewer pieces to work with. So it's kind of a balancing mechanism. But what do you think about this?
Well, there was about a 3-year period there that Mr. Chris Berm came out with these 3 games, and one was this game's called Yinch, and the other one was Gipf.
Well, the whole thing is called...
Gipf.
No, the whole thing is the GIPF project.
The GIPF project.
Let me get back to the screen. See, down there it says the GIPF Project, and it's 5 games or
5 games. Yeah, there were about 5 games, but 3 of them were popular. There was the Gipf, there was Devon, and there was Yinch. And I actually know a little German.
Yeah? What's his name?
I was waiting for him to do it.
No.
That's my favorite joke. But I know a little German, and none of these have, and Mr. Berm is obviously from German, right? None of these have anything to do with the German language. It's just him having fun, like, you know, like the Star Trek people where they make, you know, they come up with an alien race and they call them Blarflock, and everybody goes, oh, Blarflock, that sounds like an alien thing. So he came up with these abstract strategy games, and they were just so quirky. He says, let's give them a quirky name, Yinch and Devon and Gipf. And they all play fine, but they're 2-player strategy games. And if I want to play a 2-player strategy game with plastic bits, I'm playing, what? Not this, I'm playing what this is, which is Othello. I like Othello. Oh, Othello's a fine game. It's a fine game. Sit around at a bowling alley, you're playing Othello, you're drinking your favorite mass market
that game
beverage.
Has problems. I'm not going to get into it. But here's what I say about 2-player abstract strategy games, is that I find they work best if you have one person that you can play with regularly, and you both learn the game at the same time. And so your skill level goes up, because it can be tough when one person's good and the other person's not. It's frustrating for the person that's
That was literally my youth when I learned Othello at the bowling alley. I played with a guy, and we played over and over and over, and he taught me the game.
Humbug. That's what I say. Othello.
You'd rather play Gipf.
I'd rather play Yinch. Look, it's ranked number 93. How bad can it be?
Well, it's probably fun.
Although I did put, haven't played, not interested. Because I'm mostly not interested in abstract strategy games.
Yeah, I'd like it, but I'd only like it if I retired and I was next to a bowling alley and I found a guy I could play with it every week, and we sit around playing it at the bowling alley. I don't know why it has to be played at a bowling alley. It just does.
I say I'm not interested, but it is one of those things that if there was somebody that I saw regularly that said, I would like to start playing this game, I would play it, but I'm not buying it. I'm not going on my
But you had that in college at Falcon's Maze.
Oh, yeah. I had a roommate. And
it was a 2-player abstract strategy.
Oh, we went through. We used to go on streaks where we'd play for like 2 or 3 bets.
Fit the bill.
We did backgammon.
Would you have done the Yinch?
Oh, we would have done this. It's just one of those things. Like we just go for like 2 or 3 months where we just keep playing these games until we got really good at them, and then we're like, oh, what else is new? But yeah, that's. I would do it. That's the exact ideal situation. You know, where you're with somebody that you see almost every day, and then you just sit down, you both learn it, and your skill level goes up at the same time.
That is the optimal thing. That's why I still like Othello, I suppose, because it holds a warm place in my heart when I was a kid.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a 93 inch. Number 92 is Navigador. Mac Gert's game from Rio Grande. It's a game about Portuguese colonization. I put that as exploration and race, because the way this game works, it's a rondel game, like many Mac Gert's games. So what that is this is here you have your options where you can go around, and it tells you, oh, I'm either going to buy at the market, I'm going to move, I'm going to get some ships, whatever. But the way this game works is everybody starts up here. And you're going to try to work your way down. And so it's kind of a race game in that when you get to someplace first, you're the first person to discover it, you get a reward.
Yeah.
But the other interesting aspect of this game is that this chart here shows you the values of these goods that you can get as you go exploring, and that as you sell the goods to the market, their value goes down for other people to sell. But that also makes it go up for the people who want to produce. So if you get sugar and you produce it, you sell sugar, it may be cheap, but that means that the factories, that people are going to pay. Yeah, that's a good aspect of the game. So you've played this game a few times.
I've played this game many times, and I love it. But I like the aspect I like it is Matt Gertz basically saw what he liked. I compare it to Puerto Rico because it depends on player to your left. Depends on a lot about your strategy. There's about 6 ways to win the game. One of them, is master the commodities, and these are worth a lot of points if you specialize in these, and the favors of the people.
Well, what are these? I mean, people might not be able to see that. So when you say you specialize in these,
buying churches or buying ships. If you're a big ship, this is a multiplier. The number of ships multiplies times the number of ships that you have as a multiplier at the end of the game. Also, the churches is a multiplier by a number of people you have at the end of the game, and there's also multipliers with these people. I don't know what they're called in the game.
Privileges.
Privileges as a multiplier. So there's 5 or 6 base strategies, but it all depends on what the person to your left is doing. If the person to your left is doing something, no, it's very Puerto Rico-esque in that I'll change my strategy. If the person on my left is basically pumping out a lot of gold all the time, then I'll get into gold. I'll do the other way of the market. I'll get a lot of money and no. Yeah, I think it works. I think it's if you apply the Puerto Rico logic to this game, it works very well.
It's known as left-right binding, but I don't know that this game really has. But I do see your point, though, is that you don't want to be the same good as the person who's just going to sell right before you. But one of the issues, I mean, this game's okay, but what did I put it as? I put it as okay. Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
But one of the issues I have with this game is, as you point out, that you can buy these churches and factories, and then there's a multiplier. The way it works is you buy the church or churches over the course of the game, and then you buy the multipliers. Well, the problem is that if one person is buying the churches and the multipliers for them, and no one else is getting into them, they're going to get huge points out of it and win the game. So you do kind of have to pay attention to what not just the person on your left is doing, but what everyone is doing. And hey, you know what? Oh, I got to get some churches too. Every building's beneficial, so there's no reason why you wouldn't want a church. I mean, it just adds an extra reason. I better buy a church soon. But I think the presentation of this game is good. It plays well, but it's just an okay. I mean, it's probably my number 4 Mac Gertz game.
Yeah. It's probably my number 3 Mac Gertz game because it's the race game, but the benefit of winning the race really doesn't net any much points or anything. If you're specialized in one of these better than everybody else does, you're going to win the game.
Yeah, it's okay. I own it, so I can't remember the last time I brought it to a gaming event. So that was number 92, Navigador. Number 91, Imperial 2030, another Mac Gertz game, and this is another Rondel game. I will say this, and we'll talk a little bit about how it plays, but it's a world power struggle, and there's combat in it. You do fight people, but it's not really a war game. It's more of a stock game. You play on this map, and you buy stocks in people. You do have ships and you have tanks, and those you can make the countries fight against each other, but control of the countries is based on who owns the most stock. So you may start out owning United States, but if somebody else excuse me, but if somebody else buys more stocks, well, you take those US pieces and give to them, they're now controlling it.
Yeah, you don't buy stocks in people, you buy stocks in these world powers. And like Evan said, it's not exactly a conflict game, although conflict plays a role in it. The allure of the game is again in the Rondel, and this is the quintessential Mac Gertz Rondel game. But the reason this is my favorite Mac Gertz Rondel game is it's the weighty and the geopolitical aspect. Give it a certain tone where. And the length is a little bit longer, but you're in for the long haul, and it's very intriguing. The play is very intriguing of the thing, because ultimately who's going to win is somebody's going to be bumping up the stock track, and then somebody's going to make a bing, bang, bong move, and you can kind of sense when it's happening, so you have to optimize your play at the very end in order to catch the wave, as it were. You either second place or third place on really good stocks that are going to be maxed out at the end when it all cashes out, so you can win. And the other great aspect of this game is if you're not controlling one of the major companies, you're the Swiss bank, and being the Swiss bank doesn't allow you a lot of choices. But basically, you bide your if you play it right, you bide your time and pounce, which I love. I love this aspect. That aspect.
There's some people that hate the Swiss bank.
Not me.
But regardless of the pros and cons of the Swiss, you got to admit their flag is a big plus, right? Don't you have to admit that?
I know a little German.
The thing about the Swiss bank, and I understand why people don't want it. Well, let me back up. One problem with this game is that First-time players have no idea.
Oh no, this is really bad to get some.
They're like, oh, I'm just going to attack, and they expand the thing. It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to buy more stocks.
Don't drag a close friend in this unless they're. Yeah, this is not good.
But the Swiss bank, the way the Swiss bank works is that if you don't control any of the superpowers, you get the Swiss bank, and I think it's when somebody does the investor action, you get some money, and then you get an opportunity to buy stock. However, what we have found is that experienced players with the Swiss bank can win the game.
They will.
In part because they can... Well, it depends on how you play. There's another rule that varies, but when we play the game, it's not... People buy the lowest stock, and then the next lowest, and then the next lowest. It's like people will jump up and buy, so they leave these little stocks behind. And the Swiss bank can just come and scoop them all up, and then when it gets close to the end of the game, that's when they start buying control to lose the Swiss bank. There's pros and cons. I know there's people that hate it. I usually play with it. But I actually think there might be I should house rule it that you can only buy stocks if it's going to get you control of a nation. But anyway. But this is a great game. I love this game. I just love it. But it does have some downsides. It's hard to get to the table.
It is hard to get to the table. It's a classic. You need the right people.
Yeah, it is. And it really does play best with experienced players. And it plays best when you have a lot of players.
Oh, it does. It plays a lot of players. And the table talk between rounds is great because it's rewards that... that really jerky Donald Trump-esque, I'm just waiting for the deal. I'm waiting for the right money to come in. I'm biding my time. I'm just going to turtle over here in South America, park a bunch of people in the Indian Sea. I'm not moving in. I like the Indian people. I would never. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm taking over India. Oh, that's so bad. I didn't see it coming either. It's just how it happened.
Yeah, it says it
what a jerk.
It says it plays 2 to 6.
That's how I play.
But I wouldn't play it with fewer than 4.
No.
And even 4 is questionable.
Oh, because you want somebody... The thing is, he and I are big fans of the Swiss bank. You want somebody to not have control of these, so they're the Swiss bank.
No, you don't.
That's fun.
I don't want people to have the Swiss bank.
I do.
No, because I'll tell you this. When I get the Swiss bank, I'm loving it.
I know.
I think I'm going to win.
I see what you're saying.
I'm like, that's a huge advantage.
I see what you're saying.
Give me the Swiss bank.
I see what you're saying.
I usually try to keep people from getting it. But you could always just play it off.
You play as more of a jerk when you have the Swiss bank.
But yeah, and then another downside is it takes a long time. But it is one of those games that when you have like 5 or 6 experienced players and you play this game, it's one of the best gaming experiences.
Yeah. I've had the top 10 gaming experience of my life.
It may be 3 hours, but it feels like an hour because there's so much going on. You're paying attention to everybody's turn. Yeah, we both love it. Love it. Yeah, so, well, that's it, I believe. Yeah, Imperial. Oh, here's another down. Before we finish up, I hate that box artwork. I think that's terrible.
Because this is what the future will look like. These are the 6 nations that are arguing over the world in 2030. This is exactly what it'll look like. This is how technology. See that globe? See that globe in the middle? It's like that's 3D technology right there. That's high-end tech.
Yeah. This is my least favorite part of the game is the box cover. So,
not great. Not great.
Well, I think that does it. That's our Quick Takes edition BGG games ranked 91 through 100. I'm sure we'll do another one of these. Well, it'll take us a long time before we get to number 1, and we may end up doing repeats because they move around. They do change. In fact, I did this on the 16th of April, and it is now the 18th. And I looked this morning, and I noticed one of the games had changed. There was a game. I'm like, why is that game? Oh, well, I think it dropped down. It was Pathfinder, the adventure card game, was up there, and it's dropped down into these numbers here. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. Join us again another time.
See ya.